to me, the EMS represents a kind of expert, knowledge-based forum where you have people who have served in high government positions, national governments, and you have business leaders, you have NGO representatives, and members of the academia. They come together and explore. With each of these, you explore one theme, which is a pressing issue facing emerging market countries. And I just find it, as an academician, it's a very, very exciting place to be. And then if I may add, you know, we also explore all kinds of what's the best way to solve this particular problem, or set of problems. So we take international best practices and try to fold them into policy recommendations that typically happen at the end of the symposium.
Well, as Tsung says, this is a forum of giving and taking. And that's the exciting. Very often you go to a conference, you make a presentation, but you really don't learn much. Here you do, and so you hope to contribute, but you also take perspectives away. For example, I came away and wrote a column for the New York Times saying, I actually think eventually the emerging market economies would teach us how to do healthcare better in the West, in the developed countries. Because when I listen to what our colleagues in India or Tsung's China, what they are doing, you realize we're actually wasting resources relative to what they do. So there is really a fair amount of learning. And then as generally in these forums, particularly for academics, we do hope that we're actually going to be able to serve a larger audience. And ultimately the dream is to make the world a better place. That may be arrogant, but we hope that's in some way what we all work for.
And then this recommendation, policy recommendation formulation process, I think is very, very interesting, exciting, and I think it differs from most other conferences and symposia, where you just go and make your presentation and leave. But this, you can see that maybe, just maybe, that there is a chance to translate knowledge and research into reform, ideas into action.
I hadn't actually thought about it this way, but this is her way of writing. There's always a section, what should you do? It's literally like that. And it is true, in most of these symposia, we talk to each other intelligently, we hope, but it's really up to you when you go away to synthesize that and put this all together and draw from it. Well, here we go one step further and we do it jointly to formulate what came out of this and what guidelines could you take from it and recommendations could you make. Usually that's not done, and this makes it special. The other thing is, to have anything at Oxford, it's just a little different than having it in a hotel, even in the Ritz in London. It's just different. There's an atmosphere, just the way people express themselves, an extremely intelligent forum, and that has its own aesthetic value.
See, for me personally, as somebody who's in the academia, I would take what I learned from this. I will have new insights into this area, and then I think it will be reflected in my own work down the road.
EMS produces a ring binder of literature that, like a board book, that you have to read, and this one was exceptionally good. I read it from cover to cover, and I learned a lot from it. To put this together, which is what I'm trying to do in my contribution to this. How does this all fit together? And then I realized in doing that, how closely that parallels healthcare. For example, who should pay for the education? Is it a private or a public good? Should you just have first-rate university and nothing else? Or should you have differentiated community colleges, polytechnics to serve industry more, and the academy to have a far more looser structure where intellectuals can play, so to speak? And what is the mixture, the right mixture? All of these issues we have in healthcare, primary care, tertiary hospital. And I never realized we have all of that in education. I find this a very particularly exciting symposium.
Yeah, I mean, to give you one example, you take this one issue, growing inequality that is happening in all countries in the world, the rich countries as well as developing countries. And the readings in the briefing book that we have, it points out that in higher education, tertiary education, inequality may also be in the making. In that, so in a way that tertiary education has the potential of, in fact, aggravating the problem. So then, all right, then you realize this is a problem, so what do we do? What kind of policies should we recommend to help it not happen or get worse?
This actually is one of the more tricky issues in education. We had always thought, and it was true after the World War II, that higher education was an equalizer. Particularly in the US, we had the GI Bill, and the lower middle class got sucked up into higher education, which wasn't possible before. But this urge to privatize everything may actually reverse that trend and make higher education, again, instruments of inequality. And society, I don't think, has latched onto this and realizes this is a danger. Yeah, in the post-war period, we all thought that higher education was a channel for greater equality and social mobility, and it was. The GI Bill in the US, and you had a similar, you had basically free education here. But this urge to privatize now, which has some appeal, nevertheless brings with it the danger that higher education will become a channel of inequality, that it'll be another privilege like golf courses. And our societies have to really worry about it for two reasons. One, that doesn't produce stable societies. Number two, it's unfair. But thirdly, it's inefficient on top of that. You're losing an awful lot of good, what we call human capital, intelligent people who have potential but didn't have the opportunity to realize that. This is an Aristotelian concept of human flourishing. They were not allowed to maximize their ability to flourish. And I think society is not as aware of it as it should be. I was not till I read this binder.